While Cinderella is considered by most to be a Disney classic, there have been those in recent years who have questioned if the movie is really as good as it's often given credit for. Whether for Cinderella's characterization, the mice, or any number of other things, the movie just doesn't click with some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, this can often lead to those same people trying to make the argument that either of Cinderella's two direct-to-video sequels are one of the unheard of times where they were actually better than the original, and particularly Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, which, to be fair, is often noted to be one of the better direct-to-video sequels all around. And today, I'd like to quickly go over all three Cinderella movies and see which one is truly the best, while trying to stay as fair and objective as possible. And obviously there'll be spoilers ahead, so if for whatever reason you don't want to know something that happens, don't proceed with this video. Okay, so to go in reverse, Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time is definitely a step above most of Disney's direct-to-video sequels, including its own predecessor. It has a much tighter and more interesting plot, even making Lady Tremaine a much bigger threat by getting her hands on the fairy godmother's wand, allowing both Cinderella and the prince to have a much bigger role in the plot, and even has a pretty effective redemption story for Anastasia. And not to mention, it's actually pretty funny, especially the legendary moment where the prince jumps out the window to get around his father. And for a direct-to-video sequel, the climax is actually a pretty effective and intense one. All around, it's a lot better than it had any right to be, and it's really no wonder why some prefer it to the original, as it essentially does everything that one doesn't. Now, Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True, is hardly even worth mentioning, since it is hands down the worst of the three. It tries squeezing blood out of a turnip by trying to find not one, but three different stories to tell from a tale that was already completely finished and didn't need a follow-up of any kind. As a result, its attempts to manufacture a plot are not only pathetic, but don't make for a very good story either. As I said in another video, which you can find a link in the description to, its attempts to stitch together a narrative from three stories is horrible. But if there is one good thing to say about it, it did at least set up the foundation for Anastasia's redemption in the third movie. But that is the only positive thing to come out of it. Really, there's no question that if nothing else, the original is most definitely better than this. And speaking of that, we now have the original Cinderella movie, which tells the classic story of an abused girl who remains nice and optimistic despite everything she's put through, and with a little help from her fairy godmother and animal friends, is able to attend the ball, fall in love, and live happily ever after. But is it better than Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time? And honestly, I would have to say yes. Because first of all, there's never been a more famous adaptation of the classic fairy tale than the one done by Walt Disney. And between the beautiful animation and the sincere yet funny way that story is told, it just can't be considered anything but exceptional. Besides, as I got into in my video on Disney's direct-to-video sequels, which you can also find a link in the description to, just because Cinderella 3 is better than most other sequels, that doesn't mean it's a masterpiece. But the biggest reason I'd say the edge has to go to the original is because it broaches on some very sensitive topics and addresses them in a very important and relevant manner. But I already dedicated a whole video to that as well, which you can also find a link in the description to if you want to explore that topic further. So all I'll say for the moment is, Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time is definitely good, yes. but it's not better than the original Cinderella, which has way too much going for it to not be considered anything but a classic. Okay, I think that answers that question. But now I'd like to hear your opinions. Do you believe that the original Cinderella is better than Cinderella 3, despite what some people would have you believe? Or do you think that the third movie actually is better? Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if you disagree with anything I said, that is perfectly okay too. You are entitled to your own opinion, and if you think I was completely wrong in what I said, that is totally fine. And thank you all for watching. It is all very much appreciated, and I hope to see you all next time.